Oh, g'day, g'day, g'day. I hope this is working. I don't know what is going on, but I want to have a talk about the situation in Israel. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm just posting up a link. Oh no, I've stuffed it up. Hey, how are you? Why do I look very red on this little screen? The whole world has gone mad. Not the whole world, but little bits and pieces. Yes, I can say so. Right, sorry. Okay, everyone. How are we? We're back. I don't know, my whole computer just did not work. That is okay. Let me post up this. Right. How are we all doing? So what we are here to really discuss is that, you know, we know there's been some small, really localized operations from the IDF into Lebanon, you know, over the past months. We know that there's been very minor, but then today it has been announced that there will be a much larger offensive, and we saw this. We saw a lot of armored vehicles arriving near the front. We saw these massive bombing campaigns that have also occurred also. Nicola says, I'm blown away as how the international community is reacting to Israel. In what way, Nicola? As far as people ignoring it, or as far as people rallying around then the other countries in relation, as far as Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Palestine, all this? Ignoring. Yeah, well, it has been wild, and I've actually been speaking with a lot of guys recently who, you know, these, you know, pretty hard-hitting guys who are like, this is insane, what's actually happening as well. Guys I really didn't expect some of that from. So, look, let's get then stuck into it. And look, I'm going to rely on you guys to help me out with whatever content you find as well, and then we'll show you, and then we'll go from there. Apologies on the last one. I do not know. I don't know what happened. Everything then fell over on me. So let me get out the. God, I have not done a live in a while. I'm trying to figure out how this works. Thank you for becoming a member, mate. Right. If I drag this onto this screen, whoa, that's big. Sorry. Trying to work out how I can show you something on another screen. Right. So, this is basically what then we got out. This was from the IDF within the last, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours. What time is it now? Yeah, so 2-3 hours. In accordance with the decision of the political echelon, a few hours ago, the IDF began limited, localized, and targeted ground raids based on precise intelligence against Hezbollah terrorist targets and infrastructure in southern Lebanon. These targets are located in villages close to the border and pose an immediate threat to Israeli communities in northern Israel. What we have seen too is basically over the past week, yes, there's been a lot of strikes going on, but particularly last week with the targeting of then the senior leadership of Hezbollah, we have seen massive amounts of missile targeting within areas like Beirut and built up areas, and there is a hell of a lot of this going on too. The IDF is operating according to the methodical plan set out by the General Staff and North Command, which IDF soldiers have trained and prepared for in recent months. The IAF and IDF artillery is supporting the ground force with precise strikes on military targets in the area. These operations are approved and carried out in accordance with the decision of the political echelon of Northern Arrows. So the operation which is going forward, Carl says, love your work, Maddie. Do you think we're getting pretty close to World War III? To be honest, Kyle, I actually think we'll look back at this period as a a bit of a proxy World War III, that we're in like there's like a Cold War, but not. So, you know, you could say that we are actively at war with Russia. You could say that we are supplying, like Russia has launched a war into Ukraine. We are supplying Ukraine with arms and intelligence to target specific, you know, Russian areas, Russian vehicles. So you could say we are definitely involved in that war, whether we are at war or not. I guess that's up for debate. And then there's funding from Russia through to Iran into areas like this too, and the US funding into here. So the amount of people with their fingers in the pies of this, I would hazard a guess to say that we actually are in World War III. It's just not looking like you might think it would look like. More so from the standpoint of no one can actually afford a great state war. Okay, nuclear power, nuclear great states, no one can afford that war in terms of losses and just bloody economy, that we'll see a lot more of this, and there's just going to be way more. Do I ever think there will be, you know, nukes falling from the sky? I don't believe so, but and I hope so. But again, you never ever know. Nuclear weapons save, of any weapon, the most amount of lives until they don't, I guess. But we will see. So the Operation Northern Arrows will continue according to the situational assessment in parallel to the combat in Gaza and other arenas. The IDF is continuing to operate to achieve goals of the war and is doing everything necessary to defend the citizens of Israel and return the citizens of northern Israel to their homes. So you guys will remember that. Oh, thanks, Daniel. You guys will remember that I was in northern Israel, a couple of months ago? And there was somewhere between 60 and 100,000 people that had to be evacuated from northern Israel due to the ongoing targeting coming across the border. That said, the H guys there did say, we will stop that when you stop your operation down in the south, in Gaza. So, of course, that operation has not stopped. That operation, which was, and this is becoming more and more obvious, and I don't really see how this is getting solved, is it was always meant to be a limited operation, few weeks, and people saying, you know, it'll all be done by, at that point, on October the 7th, which is a year away in a couple of days. It was really thought to be done by Christmas. I was there. People thought then, yep, by Christmas, it'll be all done and dusted. And obviously that is not the case whatsoever. So, of course, it's going to carry on for a year, and you've seen how people around the world have reacted to this. And or more on a global strategic level, I think, and I have definitely said, I've said at length, and I made a video specifically on this for people that say I don't criticise. And I made the video when I was in Israel. I said Israel may be tactically victorious, but they will strategically lose. And what I mean by that is tactically on the Afghanistan is a great example of this. We tactically won in Afghanistan. We tactically won. We won every single battle. We had all the planes, all the artillery, all of this, all of that. But our clear goal, we never really had a really clear goal. And in the end of that, we strategically lost. Now, I'm not saying that therefore this exact scenario is going to happen to Israel. But what I'm saying is you're going to have for multiple centuries, all of your neighbours hate you. But also what this war has done, I think, massively, is there is a growing divide between the West and the global South. As the global South comes more into localized power and more self-sufficiency also, we are seeing a divide there. And one thing I will say with this is I think this war here has sped that up by 50 years. I've shown you before the maps of the UN, of this or that, of who supports Israel, who doesn't, and who's the global South and who's not. And you can clearly see the divide here that's getting exacerbated. And this has exacerbated that massively. I think also on the other side, I think that this has been optically and messaging the greatest thing to actually happen for Russia and probably for China. But let's talk about Russia. because they can talk to this and they can message to other areas around the world. What they can do is they can say, hey, look at the hypocrisy of this targeting, look at this, look at that. Now, you and me could go in and add nuance to certain pieces here and go, oh, this is what's happening and this is what blah, blah, blah. We can, you and I can do that. But on a large level, this has been, for that messaging, fantastic. You can go, well, look at the hypocrisy of X amount of civilians taken out to hit this guy here. Well, we did X, we did Y. And for that division, I believe, and you guys can let me know if you want in the comments here. The goal of Russia and China's unconventional warfare campaign, and particularly China at the helm now, is not a military victory over the West, because they know that can't occur currently. And how that would look anyway would just be no one would be left. It would turn into a protracted war. It'd be lights out for everyone and no one could bloody move. But strategically, I think what they want to do is create division in the West more, and at the same time draw people's trust away from the West. And this war has, I believe, sped that up dramatically. People in the West are completely divided over this war, rightfully so, because there are elements on each side you can absolutely speak of and go, look, look at these civilian casualties to target X. Is this sit within international norms? And you can go, look, with right to self-defense also in this. So, yeah, it is. I think this has exacerbated that process of at least going from a very unipolar world, particularly with the US at the helm, to then speed up what the global South see as a more multipolar world. And I've spoken at length too about there could be a lot of China sort of dragging Russia, using them in this as well. So the messaging coming out of this strategically has turned tens, hundreds of millions, potentially billions, against Israel and more against the West. Does that then make sense? Of course, like I've said, no one is surprised by this invasion at all. I spoke about this when I was there. I was in Israel. I don't know when. It's probably a lot. Sorry, if you can see, I'm super, super tired. You can see my face. Sorry. No one's surprised by this. I was there because I thought this was going to happen months and months ago. It didn't occur. Will this be limited? Will it be massive? We don't know. If there's anything that you think I should look up and show you on the screen, please let me know in the comments. But this will, just outside of the localized area, this is having massive effects in other areas. Will I be going back to Israel? I don't know. Probably not at this point. But you may see, for those asking if I'll go back, you may see I've got a link at the top here, support my trip to Washington. I will be most likely heading to the US in November to cover the elections there, and I hope to bring you a live stream from on the ground when things start happening. So yeah, if you want to support that trip, let me know. Right, let's have a look and see if there is. The problem is I don't know what I can and can't really show you on here. But if there's anything specifically, let me know. Then I'll go have a bit of a look. We're meeting fans in Washington. Wow, sure. If anyone wants to catch up with me in Washington, or maybe let me sleep on their couch, I'd be in for that. This was known months and months ago. This was known months ago that this would have had to have occurred at some point, but we didn't know exactly how it will look. And to be honest, we're still not exactly sure how this will look also. So, number 2 scene. So, Ausint Defender, who does a really, really fantastic job here on reporting the strike in Al-Wali. refugee camp in West Lebanon is reported to have been targeted, the home of Manir al-Maktar, the senior leader of Fatah in Lebanon, with him claimed to have survived. Oh, g'day, Hillbilly, mate. I hope you're doing really well. Someone asked, who do I want to win the election in the US? Look, I don't have a massive, I don't have massive input because I'm not a voter in that election. What I will say, if I was a voter, looking at everything that I look at, if I was a voter, I could not vote for Kamala. That's all I'll say. I couldn't vote. Seeing what has occurred over the last 4 years, seeing the strategic messaging around the world of around neoliberalist ideas, and how that is affecting, like, how very small things are affecting very massively, that microscopic societal movements have seeped into the fabric of our existence and affecting then global politics strategy around the world. That's a concern. But I don't know if Trump will win. And much like is it Eric Weinstein, I think, said, he said, I don't know if Trump will be allowed to win. Read between the lines, I guess, on that. But I guess, who do you guys think will win, or who would you then vote for? I think the greatest, in my opinion, Trump has lost some of the recent debates, or the recent debate. Probably not in the way he would typically debate. If that, he would more, I would think, get into a shit talking contest. But I think the best argument that he would have is, you've been in power. What are you going to do? You've already been there. Why don't you do this now? And I do believe, and I'm going to make some pretty broad. I'm going to make some very broad assumptions here. So if you disagree with that, that's fine. But it's just, as I see it overall, is the right wing is typically more pro-Israel. Typically, of course, you've got very different factions in this, but let's say that. The left wing is typically more pro-Palestine. Now, the problem here is, I think that Biden, Kamala, who people forget that Kamala is in power currently. We don't really know who's in power because I don't believe that Biden's running anything. But what I will say is, I think that these situations in America's support, and also people pointing at then hypocrisy from this, that they're sort of undercutting their voters massively. I believe, personally, I think if Trump wanted to guarantee a win, he would just say, look, I'll end the war, and I'll end what's happening in the Middle East, and we will have no further support if it doesn't end, because that wouldn't stop any of his voters voting for him. That's not going to swing them suddenly back onto a blue voter, but it may swing a lot of blue onto red, if that then makes sense. But yeah, I'm not. It's such a hard one with US elections. But again, if you want to support me, if you want to support me going to the elections, there are the abilities to become a member, or the PayPal, or any of this. As well, what I was going to say, the reason I'm going to the US will be, dude, I look like shit. I'm so tired. Will be because I don't know where this election's going to go, and I don't know how out of control this potentially could get if I then go to the US. You know, depending who's in power, and I don't know what would get more wild. I don't know if it would get more wild if Kamala gets in, or I don't know if it would get more wild if Donald gets in. I really do not know. The Aviator says, can Israel technically maintain a three-front war? Gaza, Lebanon, Iran. Israel seems to have overplayed their hand to me. Aviator 06, they probably can to a degree. Some things I would ask, though, is I wonder how economically things are going in Israel, because, you know, they've now mobilised a heap of guys who have been, you know, they're getting paid salaries, they're there. War is incredibly, incredibly expensive. How much further impact down the line is this having for this maybe short-term active conflict, if that makes sense. Iran's a hard one. If it was then Iran whole, I still believe they probably could, but the US would be far more involved in this. But I think one of the main things is, can we keep up the air defense missiles to a, let's say, four-front war? I think this is strategically, I think one of the issues here that will affect Ukraine the most is there's a lot of overlap of, say, Patriot systems and missiles. So, and I also believe that then Israel will get those missiles before Ukraine. And I have spoken at length about some of the unconventional warfare behind the scenes stuff. Might be there's some money flowed through the Middle East of, hey, fire these missiles, limit the missiles to Ukraine. Russia can have a lot more success with their missile campaigns as well. You've got to remember that these are not completely mutually exclusive at all. Nothing in a global economy, in a global world order, nothing is mutually exclusive anymore, whether it is used for optics and strategic messaging, propaganda, or whether it is used to support tactical operations, this, that, and the rest. MT Coiner, it gets wild under Trump, it gets out of control under Kamala. I do agree, MT Coiner. The difference that I see in this is in recent years in America, the left has shown more aggressive tendencies towards rioting, protesting, and violence. Personally, that's what I've seen, from BLM to other bits and pieces, to more recent ones as well. But the thing that tends to happen with the left is it peters out very quickly, because there's so many ideas and mixing of, even down to ideologies in this. It tends to not be very led or like put together. It's like this group, blah, 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 and sort of peters out eventually, where I believe the right, just due to the nature of it, would be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, I've had a brain blank. Maybe more unison. And if that did get pushed to that level, it could be then more serious as well, if it was more led and as one as something. I don't know if any of this is, well, it's definitely possible. I don't know if any of it is realistic, but it absolutely could. We got very, very, very close to seeing this with the 2 assassination attempts against former President Trump. So it is difficult to know, but at the same time, what's happening right now in Israel, leading up into an election, is very, very difficult for a lot of voters who feel very, very passionately about this. Daniel, thank you, bro. But I would like to see what exactly then occurs. Thanks, Jakey boy. So, car appears to have been the target of an Israeli airstrike on the Syrian capital of Damascus, likely a targeted assassination. That's from Aussie Defender as well. Updates on the brain scan. Will the tumour be removed? No, look, the tumour's probably never going to be removable per se. We might just be able to resect some. I actually got an email before with a date for it, but I'm not exactly sure when. Able to, I haven't heard you comment much on Israeli conflict lately. Thought the Mossad had a word with you. No, absolutely not. It's just a lot easier day to day speaking about Ukraine, making videos there. Where my knowledge base sits is far more relevant there than maybe in Israel. But day to day, I don't know if I could do daily videos on this, or I can for Ukraine. So I do a lot more talking there. But I do touch on, in a lot of my Ukraine updates, I do touch on this talking about how this affects that, or can affect then further further strategic messaging or alliances down the line also. Alvaro says, what do you think the possibility of Russia sending advanced weapons to Iran? This is, I believe, one of the primary concerns of the US to do with giving weapons to Ukraine, long-range weapons and targeting. And I've spoken about this at length, is I don't believe that it is... I don't believe when they say we don't want any escalation, they're not talking about... I don't believe they're talking about bombs dropping in Kyiv or conventional escalation in Ukraine. What I believe they're talking about is, can Russia escalate in the Middle East through Iran or through a proxy? That next thing, could we see technology or weapons or better ISR capability from, say, satellites, increasingly to increase the lethality of strikes from the H guys or from Iran within the Middle East, including against Israel and bases in, say, in areas like Syria as well. So I believe that is a lot of the talk about setting that. And I do think that very likely there has been a lot of technology going the other way. One thing which, speaking with people in the IDF, have told me is that Iran is very, very good at making analogs and reverse engineering equipment. And there is an idea about, if they get a hold of something, they can actually re-engineer that very, very well. So there's an issue there as well. Someone mentioned, I forgot your name, sorry. Someone mentioned about the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence services. One of the very interesting pieces, and I actually wrote it down somewhere. Oh, here I go. I've actually wrote it down on a card. I've got these cards all over my desk that I just write things on as I think of it. Do you ever wonder how an intelligence service who can pinpoint commanders on the ground in different nations, explode thousands of pages and phones at a whim, didn't have any idea about the planning or the attacks of October the 7th? I'll let that sit with you for a minute. And I think that should be one of the big questions being asked, that I think many may not want to ask because it's sensitive to them, or doesn't, their audience might be against it, but I'd like an answer to that. I wish I was a big enough YouTuber to actually ask and be like, hey, actually get but this is the problem. This is what annoyed me when I was there, is of course no one would give me accreditation to be press. People think Israel paid me to go to Israel. Trust me, Israel did not pay me to go to bloody Israel. If that was the case, they would have given me better access to people or interviews or this or that. At the same time, I didn't get a press accreditation. They did not issue me accreditation because I wanted to ask questions like this. I wanted to be like, hey, look, this targeting, and this tunnel's here, these people are here, and this and this and this. Obviously, their intelligence service, we know they are incredibly good at what they do. How then did none of this get seen? Something being planned for months, if not years, multinational here. There's training of H guys with... There's footage out there of H guys training with Wagner at points. How did none of this come up at all? I've heard people say you couldn't swing a cat in Gaza and not have hit someone who was informant for Israel. I don't know. Joe, oh my God, Joe, I'm going to call you Joe. In 2008, there was the Russian-Georgian War. That ended, and since Georgia has been in peace. Any lessons that we can learn from the peaceful resolution that can apply to a Ukraine settlement? It's going to be difficult with who gets in power, but it's also very difficult with the bloodshed and the allies too, of where there is so much pressure put on the Ukrainian government as well, and internal pressure also. Peaceful resolutions. Well, the thing is, if there's going to be a resolution, both sides need to walk away with the idea that they are happy with that and that they have somewhat won. Of course, Georgia walked away with territories, this and that. At this point in time, I think it's good to look at that, but as far as the comparison, it's much, much larger scale, and the losses also. Here we go, hot potato. What happened to Netanyahu's ICC, the International Criminal Court? So from the UN arrest order, he did attend a UN meeting and no one have arrested him. Yes, this is the thing though. Hot potato is that was conducted in the US, who is not a signatory or ratifier maybe to the ICC, so they didn't have the obligation to arrest him. Well, what have I done? But at the same breath, the US has said that has no credibility against Netanyahu as well. Now, again, sorry, let me say this. This is like I spoke about the use of this war, the use of this in other theatres around the world. Well, okay, Netanyahu can visit the US, is not arrested. Some other major countries have said that they won't arrest him, or they don't see that the ICC has any jurisdiction or credibility. Okay, why then should Russia or China see to then the warrant against Putin? This is what people are saying, and this is where people are going in the hypocrisy in this. And leaders in Russia will go, well, there's the same warrant out, and you didn't do it, so why for then should we do this? And of course, this gets used, whether you can add nuance and argument is regardless of how it is used through messaging and propaganda as well. And then we saw that Putin visited Mongolia, which is a signatory and has ratified, and didn't then arrest him. Which I know a lot of people then called out, but I don't think they understand where geographically Mongolia may sit and the reliance on the neighbours, Russia and China. Right. So let's have a look at this. The statement from the Israeli Defence Force, which we read, was worded. This appears to be exactly what the US officials were saying. It would be a limited operation. There likely won't be any goal yet, or territory or capture. With it possible, the Israeli force have already withdrawn by Tuesday morning. This is one of the difficult things also, though. This is one of the difficult pieces, is we were really told this with the operation into Gaza, that it would be limited and that people did believe that would be sort of done and dusted, of course, by Christmas time. That was sort of what we were working on at that time. Right. Limited, localized, targeted raids against targets in the border area. Let me know if there's anything you guys see that I should be looking at, because I'm not going to be scrolling that much. Sorry, I have to reply to something. Let me know, what do you guys think of this? Do you think it will be limited, or do you think that it's going to be the same as we saw down in the south and have another year of war with no real end in sight? This is the thing. This is the thing. Defeating enemies at war is difficult. Defeating ideology has basically proven to be impossible. And this is one of these things. Attack an airport compound in Baghdad. Launch sites of rockets. That's probably very loud. Apologies if you hear that. The UK Embassy in Beirut has announced that a chartered evac flight will arrive in Beirut Hariri Airport on Wednesday. Seats currently available for British nationals who remain in Lebanon and wish to evacuate. Now, someone did ask me before about, are you going to go to Lebanon? Now, I did, of course. You might be aware, I looked into that before I went back to Ukraine last time, and I got in touch with some people there who did advise locals who are going to work with me. I did advise, look, with you being in the military and you being previously to Israel, probably not the best time to come to Israel. Donna, welcome to the club. I hope that you are doing really well. Thank you. I have spoken. I did speak at the time that the north is going to be very, very tricky for Israel. Very mountainous, unlike the south. A lot bigger area. Therefore, your armour and the odds of it getting hit by some sort of guided munition is very, very high, and runs a big, big risk. I've got hiccups on this also. Lockie, brother. Mate, long-time viewer, first-time super chatter. In regards to the dead internet theory, Aegon Chocolan, and bots on X, how effective are misinformation and disinformation campaigns to regular locals affected? Hey, Lockie. Firstly, mate, thanks. Look, this is going to be difficult with how much of the local, how much are locals affected. I actually think by the bots, a lot of the locals may be affected less. I think it's probably a lot of people online who then become further ingrained, or maybe, for want of a better term, maybe radicalized onto whatever way those bots are pushing. Now, one of the main things I think the bots do is confirmation bias is very, very strong. Very strong. If you see a news post, say, if I put up a post and say, this is what's happening, and there's a comment under it with, no, Willie, you're wrong, this is what's happening, and that has 1,000 likes, even if you're not over it, the confirmation bias of, oh, there's 1,000 people agree with that comment, is incredibly strong. We see this particularly if anyone's ever looked at like Wall Street bets or ASX bets or anything like this, like stock market stuff. People will invest real money with something they have no idea about because there's confirmation bias. And I believe this is what a lot of the bots are doing. I believe the bots are boosting comments, they're boosting likes, and they're boosting even down to bloggers or speakers on specific subjects that they see as more friendly, and try and confirm that. Just by the nature of the internet, if someone has 1 million followers, what they say seems to be taken more official than if someone has 10,000. It's funny, like it's like that in the internet. Like, if an American colonel says something about the war in Ukraine, that will be less reported on than if Katy Perry did. It's just a weird thing of the world, but having that sort of social status somehow like elevates that position. And I think then a lot of bots online can elevate bloggers or speakers or reporters. They elevate that up to get their message across that they would then like. Does that make sense? But as far as affecting the locals there, I don't think that much per se. Like, I think they're more just involved in it. For instance, let's talk about Ukraine. There's a lot of people in Ukraine who are far more open to what is really happening in this situation and this and that, because they're seeing the shells, they're seeing what's happening, they're seeing the war, as compared to a lot of the people, say, just on the internet who aren't seeing it, but they're just listening to this like super pro speakers and getting like further and further down that path because of all these biases and potential bots or echo chambers that are created, and then it gets skewed. But for the one on the ground, I believe it is fairly, at least less affected, if that makes sense. But there's still going to be an effect there, and the bots the bots into the future and the use of these on the internet is something I just do not know how it's going to be controlled at any rate. If that makes sense. But let me see if I can find anything for you. So Israeli forces 7 hours ago did cross into southern Lebanon. Sneako's made a post, boys. That should be academic. But what I will say about bots too is not everything is a bot. That it's bot has been used as like term to just disregard someone's opinion, as people do just have different opinions on things, and it's just used as like calling someone a bot now is what in the mid 2000s calling someone racist was. That if you had a disagreement with someone and you said you're racist or you're sexist, it sort of meant whatever you say from then on out, regardless of if they are or not, it's not going to matter because you've been labelled as that. And that's what I see people saying with bot. If someone goes, oh, you're a ex-bot, it tends to just discredit. It's discrediting everything they could say from there, even if it's just someone with then a differing opinion or something to put across. But of course, there definitely are legitimate bots being controlled as well. And trust me, into this election, which is potentially the most important election in recent times in the US, we're going to see a lot more of more activity of bots and other things like this as well. So the video we are looking at here, this is Lebanese capital of Beirut, following several Israeli airstrikes of the city just near the airport. So massive airstrikes over Beirut. Again, how did it go with the functional MRI, also known as the fMRI? Yeah, bro, it went good. It went long. I was in the tube for like 2 hours. It sucked. But I haven't got the results yet. The results take about a week to actually get like processed and back. And while I've been live with you guys, I got an email actually from my my neurosurgeon to give me a date for when I come to see my professor. So I'll let you know when I get those results. It's not really a results scan, this one. Like, it's not going to show much different to the regular MRI, but it will give her, like my professor, more of an idea as to if other options open up or if I have to then restart chemo as well. But it's just a way to stop conversations happening and keep the ignorant. I agree. There are legitimate bots, but at the same time, you are right. It just stops conversation there. It just instantly like I said, Callie Fortune, that it's a little bit like it used to be calling someone, oh, you're a racist then. And it's like, oh, shit. So this is Israeli airstrikes earlier on this suburb of southern Beirut, less than a mile from Rafik Hariri International Airport. We just saw I showed you before, this smoke coming up from this as well. Will I go to Israel? No, I don't believe so. I think more likely for myself will be I'll go to the US elections. I'm going to do a specific fundraiser, but if you want to donate, I'll be on the ground in the US in Washington live, and I'll be live streaming on November the 5th in the US. And then any subsequent actions that will or will not occur following that election. And then I'll potentially, if that trip isn't a loss, I'll return then early next year for when whoever comes actually into power there. Massive strikes. I actually had a message from one of my guys that I will share with you. I won't say who it is. So he sent me a post from 3 days ago about the confirmed that the leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in Beirut during an airstrike. And this guy, he's a hard hitter, like not the person I'd expect to say this. He goes, bro, the collateral. I mean, they got the higher value target, but they also leveled like 2 apartment complexes. Surely there's going to be a massive comeback now. Like blowback for that. So I guess we will wait and see what then occurs. A lot of people are very surprised, and I see a lot of people. I saw that War Monitor account on Twitter posting about how disappointed he was that there was no real response, from Iran for what has occurred, and then taking out the leadership in Lebanon as well. Chance of nuclear weapons coming into play? No, definitely not. Not as far as use case. I think what would just change the Middle East and the powers there, and I've spoken about this, and people might think it's conspiratorial, but that's okay. Everything sounds conspiratorial until you maybe think about it more. But is the biggest thing that would change is if Russia or China in some way gave either the equipment or knowledge or even lifted restrictions on Iran being able to have some level of nuclear weapon system or a weapon of mass destruction. That would just change the elements here, because, you know, Israel basically have free reign over targets in Iran and this and that at the moment. But it would just change the escalation ladder that would have to be taken into consideration for further strikes. So that's something that I just think you should be aware of. I don't know if that's going to occur, because that's probably crossing a line of which a relationship. Well, it means that whoever country does it to, you're sort of gifting that system or the knowledge. It's probably a large line to cross also, but it is an interesting one to play over. Was how would things look there if there was a legitimate threat that Iran could have a level of weapon like this. Of course, it goes against proliferation treaties and this and that, but yeah. And as Goat rightfully points out, is that yes, Israel do have nuclear weapons. And they don't need that, you know, at the end of the day, they sort of don't need them, because they're supported completely by the US. At least at this point in time. This is something that I think is maybe playing a dangerous game for Israel. I know that they are very, very a lot of powerful people in the US and businesses and this and that. There's a lot of ingrainment. But if the US were to ever go like, look, we're not supporting this, what happens then? Like, you know, what was a quote the other day? Promises are only promises for the one who was promised, or something along those lines. Why is Israel so supported? Mate, it's just a lot of companies, a lot of militaries, and also a lot of more closer relations than other nations in the area as well. Hell of a lot of support, hell of a lot of defensive works, but also similar ideas carried as well. Considering the value of the Suez Canal to global shipping, is there a possibility that China may get involved to secure the control of the canal? I don't think anyone will go in and like militarily secure control of the canal. I don't think that will happen. What is more likely, and I've spoken at length about Suez, is China and Russia have they're basically promoting a alternative to the Suez Canal, called the NSR, the North Sea route. And this is why I've said I believe there's a lot of maybe backdoor relationship, maybe not be that backdoor because there's bloody footage of this, of support through to Iran, then down to the Houthis from Russia and anti-ship weapon systems or whatever. Because if you to go down around Africa, then it takes another like 8 or 9 days. It costs a lot more in insurance. It costs a lot more in wages. Now going through Suez costs a lot. I believe this year is $8 billion less than previous years. And of course, in this, what I have spoken about is, well, the ones to benefit from this is potentially Russia and China with the North Sea route up above Russia. And this is part of, if you've ever heard of China's Belt and Road Initiative, this is at least one factor in that as well. And a very interesting thing that I reported the other day was when you think of Russia, you don't really think gives a shit about the environment. Russia has put much tighter maritime pollution laws in place through that route in the Arctic, in much tighter pollution laws up there than typically there would ever be. What I believe they've done why they've done this, Russia is the only country in the world that produces nuclear-powered icebreakers. The only country that does it. Nuclear-powered icebreakers have no pollutants as far as fuels or oils, anything like this. There's none of that. Of course, there's other things, but let's just talk of while it's just going through the ocean, it's not pumping fuels or oils out. Now, this is why I believe a lot of those laws have been put through for pollutants in the North Sea route. Is righto then, well, if the Suez gets, very difficult or expensive to cross, the other way is too slow around Africa, well, then you can pay us to take you through up through the North Sea route, but if it's frozen over, you've got to pay for our icebreakers because we've put in these laws around pollutants, and we're the only ones that make nuclear icebreakers. So what else are you going to do? You have to pay for us to take you through. Very interesting, and that part of it interests me around like these sort of unconventional warfare things that may be occurring also. China has nuclear icebreakers, as we were told you last week. Yes, I think they're still getting made. I don't think China's one is ready to rock and roll. I think there's plans, but I don't believe, or if there is, it's made in conjunction with the Russians then. Can someone explain to me, because I'm just fully not following this at all, what is the Diddy Star? I legitimately, I've seen it over Instagram and Twitter and stuff, but I never saw the original bits of it, so I don't really know what is then actually happening. Like some weird trafficking thing or something. They're even seeing people say that there's leaders and stuff involved in this and all this wild stuff. Epstein 2. Really? Is there going to be a Netflix documentary about it? Because I'll watch that. I was disappointed that I saw that Owen Wilson was caught up in that. And I was like, damn, I like Owen Wilson. How's the hospital visit? I'll visit the hospital in a couple of days. Oh no, sorry, it might be a couple of weeks once I get further results of from that MRI that I had. But I am going not to the hospital, but to a podiatry clinic on Thursday potentially. I've got to get an ingrown toenail cut out, which is maybe the most painful thing in the world. So these are rockets over the city of Haifa. If you remember, this is where I was staying for some time when I was over there last. And then we went up to Kiryat Shmona, where we were staying in the last bit. So these are interceptions. This is Iron Dome. How unsafe is it to be in Iran right now? Wondering because my girlfriend is there and their family is not affiliated with them politically or ideologically. I'm wondering how safe they are. Johnny, mate, I don't know. Everything's relative. It would depend where she is. I don't know if there's going to be major actions against Iran. Um, one of the things I think though is I think that personally, you guys tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you think I'm incorrect in this. I think we have crossed in this conflict, US as well. I think we have crossed an event horizon at which the singularity is a war with Iran. I'll wait for the chat. What do you think of this? So a lot of people, I think the majority here are probably agreeing. I hope that things don't get that far. Um, but at the same time, I just don't see. I don't see how that isn't the finishing point of this. Um, because it's not going to stop. Like, yeah. But yeah, as Jake does say, that Iran seems to be backing down, and that is true. It really seems like there is a lot of back down compared to those strikes we saw that Iran followed out after the striking of it wasn't an embassy, but what they were claiming was an embassy, I believe. Indicated the fact that the hostages should never situation never seemed to be a priority. I think the hostages were a priority, but the problem is how do you go about executing that mission if you don't know where or how that was? But we don't know all the facts in this, and no one's ever going to give us, I guess, all of exactly what had actually occurred, all the ins and outs, what was known, what wasn't. I was going to say. This is what a lot of intelligence groups at the moment are referring to as the axis of upheaval, is the alliance, the growing alliance between Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Um, Now, China is, of course, the main firepower in this, in conventional, at least naval, as they've overtaken Russia. And of course are catching many areas around the world, especially in naval power and just industry. Sorry. Um, but in this too, that China doesn't have formal military alliances. So will we see something happen there? I'm not exactly sure. Special forces units into Lebanon, things like that were happening to a degree too. I wonder how the Houthis can escalate. I don't think there'll be much escalation from there. I think that they what I believe is being used as a unconventional warfare with the Houthis. I believe they never want to do enough to have like then like operate ground operations against it. They just want to have um, the effect they're having already with the increased insurance. You target a tanker here and there, and you just draw further and further. You make that way more difficult. But I don't think they'll ever want to escalate to the point of which it's like, right, okay, we need to just absolutely flatten everything here. US Marines in Lebanon. Well, there's a lot. I know there's a lot of UK Marines in shit. What's the country off the coast? The small island in between Israel and Greece. Oh my god, I flew in there multiple times. Someone will tell me. Cyprus, of course. I know there's a lot of troops in Cyprus at the moment. Someone says the Marines normally get their ass handed to them. No, they don't. No, they don't. Billy and someone else. Billy and Raw. Oh, no. Billy and Anok say thank you. Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. William, do you know that other countries on this side of the globe exist not just as tourist destinations but as real people? What? No shit. Probably one of the most outspoken against, like, not just saying that other people aren't just people in war, just looking at it as numbers and figures. I was watching a thing last night about World War One and the introduction of gas. And, of course, my partner's not interested in war stuff. I was watching it, and I said out loud, I was like, Lily, what did we do to each other? Like, oh my God, how did this, like, how can we go to this? Like, what did we do? And this is like war all the time. Just like, what do humans do to each other? Just bloody horrible. And I think in the future we will look back and actually see drones as like that too. Some dude with his hands up, targeted by someone sitting 10 Ks away with a bloody PS2 controller. It's just, oh. And the drones is going to get worse, man. We have not even seen the beginning of the potential of technology in drones. Like, we haven't seen like really effective use of swarms. We haven't seen AI targeting. And we're here on the drone warfare, and it's going to just do this. Oh yeah, it's insane, and it'll even have big effects on other systems. Drones to hit helicopters in the air. We've seen that. We've already seen that, but the amount that could be made could work. Made in small numbers. Jesus. And especially now, we're seeing that evolution. We're seeing now those fiber optic controlled drones, which you need a physical offensive weapon to take that out. There's no way around it. If it's wire guided, it's wire connected. You can't EW jam it. You have to hit it with an offensive system, which there is no really good offensive system against drones. I know that companies like EOS will sell their one and be like, oh, the fucking whatever it's called, this and that. I know guys around that, then it's like, yeah, it's all right, but it's not the cost per use per where we need them. If it has a range of a couple of kilometres, you've got 1,000 kilometres of front line, tens of kilometres deep in grey zone. How many of these systems do you need? You need tens of thousands of these systems to actually be able to cover everywhere. It's just not work. I don't see what the good offensive or defensive, what's the word I'm looking for? Kinetic defense is against drones, other than EW, which fiber optic control gets around. No, it's a big problem. Shit. Jetliner X has a question. It says, thanks firstly, mate. But he goes, how come we don't see any footage or coverage in the same way we did when Russia invaded? Jetty, mate, in what way? As far as on the news as much? Because this news is just a cycle. And, that things like Israel at the moment will be more in the news as the war goes on. And when big things happen, it will spool back up to the news. The footage you're meaning around maybe footage coming out of the Russians fighting, I think there's a lot of screws have been tightened on the release of footage from the Russian forces, I think. We get far less footage coming out from the Russian forces than we used to, and I think they've sort of tightened up on that OPSEC. As well as entering areas that are far more bombed and empty from civilians than previously. Because it's not a surprise anymore, because it's just a grinding forward. Someone goes, hindsight is always a 2020 Willie, and things look obvious now that didn't then. The world is such a complicated place lately. Absolutely, James. So I used to have a commander in the army who said hindsight is the foresight of arseholes, and I could not agree more. People will look back and go, we should have done that. You're like, well, no one had that foresight at the time. New water drone is massive. Corporal Cabs. G'day, mate. How's it going? Hope that you are well and your first super. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Do you think that Israel can fight the information war in Lebanon or conduct effective counterinsurgency operations? The Lebanese government is not supportive of Hezbollah, but as we've seen in Gaza, it's not so easy. Israel, from the first week of the war, from the first week, lost the informational war right then and there. They had it for about a week, maybe 2 weeks. Israel had the informational war, and that absolutely fell over for them. They are not winning the informational war. And I do not believe that we'll actually see you're not going to be able to swing that. Now, can Israel turn, if you've seen the term coin that he used there, that is counter insurgency. I don't know. Counterinsurgency is incredibly difficult. I actually have Mate, I've got a doctrine thing on counterinsurgency. Okay. Here we go. So, a document called where am I? Victory has 1,000 fathers. The success in counterinsurgency. Now, what this does, this is long. It's a couple hundred pages, but what it does break down is it breaks down insurgency and counterinsurgency operations that have occurred before, and then it looks at what has been successful and what hasn't been successful, and what makes a good counter and what doesn't. And we'll go over that. I'll just get to double helix. We don't see much footage because of the censorship. Freedom of speech. Check the quarterly Google censorship reports. Oh yeah, there's a hell of a lot of censorship going on everywhere. Here we go. Nikki says, what do you expect the realistic outcome for the Palestinian people when this is over? Nick, mate, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what will be given to help on rebuild. I don't know how there's going to be any relationship between themselves and Israel. I don't know. I'm sorry to not really answer your question. I know I'm sort of, I'm not avoiding it, but what I'll say is I don't know what the future holds for these people. Right. So going over then counterinsurgency. So what you basically need is they've broken it down that there are 15 good counterinsurgency practices and 12 bad ones. What you need is it weighed in your favour. You need far more good practices than bad practices in this, and it breaks it into a graph of the balance of this. If you can see, you won't be able to read this, but basically what it's saying is In these, when the counterinsurgency was successful or unsuccessful, how many good factors they had versus how many bad factors did it have. Therefore, you can sort of make an idea about which side is going to win. We're getting somewhere on this, just give it a second. In all the cases that have a positive balance of good versus bad factors were won by the counterinsurgency forces. All those with zero or negative balance, the counterinsurgency force lost. Okay, so I'm going to go over the good and the bad coin practices, and you can see, do you think that, which ones of these do you think Israel has in case of to run successful counterinsurgency operations? So I'll just read out the 15 good ones that we have. Any donations that come through, I'll get to them just in 1 second. So the good first one. The counterinsurgency force adhered to several strategic communication principles. The counterinsurgency force significantly reduced tangible insurgent support. The government established or maintained legitimacy in the area of conflict. Number 4, the government was at least a partial democracy. Number 5, counterinsurgency force intelligence was adequate to support effective engagement or disruption of insurgents. The counterinsurgency force was of sufficient strength to force the insurgents to fight as guerrillas. The governmental state is competent. The counterinsurgency force avoided excessive collateral damage, disproportionate use of force, or other illegitimate applications of force. Next, the counterinsurgency sought to engage and establish positive relations with the population in the area of conflict. Short-term investments, improvements in infrastructure or development, or property reform occurred in the area of conflict controlled or claimed by the counterinsurgency. The majority of the population in the area of conflict supported or favoured the counterinsurgency force. As you can see, in somewhere like Gaza or in other areas, the majority of the population in the area of conflict does not support the counterinsurgency force, nor are they seen as legitimate with the application of force. So we can see that this is not ticking off on the good lists to predict if there's going to be success. Of course, you can have outliers here. This is still in the goods. The coin force, counterinsurgency force, established and then expanded secure areas. You've got secure areas and then you expand them. Again, we have seen weapons landing in some of these, regardless if someone is there or not, that has not been established then as a secure area. The coin force had and used uncontested air dominance, which Israel does do. The force provided or ensured the provision of basic services in areas that controlled or claimed control. So the basic services to the civilians in that area. Lastly, the perception of security was created or maintained among the population in areas that the coin force claimed to control. So there is security there and it's maintained to the population. Anyway, we'll get on to the bad ones in a sec. Openly R says, when do you think the Jews can return to the north? Mate, I'd have absolutely no idea. There's still missiles coming out of areas in Gaza, significantly less powerful than in the south of Lebanon with Hezbollah. So I've legitimately no idea. Right, let's go over these bad coin practices. Remember, if you have an outweigh of the bad to the good, you're not likely to have successful counterinsurgency. Now, the coin force used both collective punishment and escalating repression. 2, the primary counterinsurgency force was an external occupier. The coin force or government actions contributed to substantial new grievances claimed by the insurgents. Number 4, militias worked at cross purposes with the counterinsurgency force or government. The counterinsurgency force resettled or removed civilian populations for population control. Just wait, 47 Delta Baron. Love your work, Willie. Shout out from Alabama. G'day, mate. I hope that you are having a great day. Where were we? So a bad practice is if you have resettled or removed populations or population control. Number 5, I believe. Counterinsurgency force, collateral damage was perceived by the population in the area of conflict as worse than the insurgents. So, what this one is saying is the damage that the counter force has done, in this case Israel, is this worse than the damage that the insurgents, in this case the H guys, have caused? If so, if you answer that yes, then it is a bad coin practice. In the area of conflict, the counterinsurgency force was perceived as worse than the insurgents. Next one. The coin force failed to adapt to changes in adversary strategy, operations, or tactics. The coin force engaged in more coercion or intimidation than the insurgents. The insurgency force was individually superior to the counterinsurgency force by being either more professional or better motivated. The coin force or its allies relied on looting for sustainment. The coin force and government had different goals or level of commitment. So I've given you 12 bad, the 15 good. I know it's hard because I'm just reading it out to you guys, but it gives you an idea of that, and you could go through and add up if you believe that Israel will or will not have success in counter-insurgency operations, away from just tactical overwhelming. Again, this is why overwhelming military action, yes, is successful shorter term, but to actually really counter then like an ideological group, you need to employ these insurgency, or it's going to insurgency factors, or it's just going to then instill. And this is why I've said again, I think the operation in Gaza, for every one person of Hamas that it may have killed, has probably radicalized 10. And that is a real problem, and that would prove in this the practices have not been outweighed in the positive to then the negative, if that makes sense. Really, Hezbollah is occupying Lebanon. Yes, I know. They're an insurgency force, and this is counter-insurgency to that force. But, so on the same side, Michael, what you can do is then where you go, what you can do with these, Michael, is we're in the good and bad counter-insurgency, but what you can also do then is you can just add these, what are good and bad then insurgency. And what you can do is, okay, they're occupying this area, then that is a bad insurgency on here, but then are they have the maintain legitimacy in the area? You could say yes. Have they occupying areas? You could say no. And what you can do is work through this on both the counter or just the counterinsurgency or just the insurgency and add up which one is more weighted. Now, obviously, Hezbollah is very powerful and they've got a lot of support. So therefore, it would say to me, and I haven't been through it specifically with Hezbollah, but it would mean that they have employed more good because they're still there, if that makes sense as well. Does that make sense? Right. I love the way you report issues going on. I tried so hard to be unbiased. Your videos get me through the day. I pray your health gets better. My guy, thank you, Gnarly. Appreciate that, man. I try my absolute best. It can be very, very difficult, especially at the moment because my views and everything just sucks completely on YouTube. But of course, has a huge problem. For other factors. But whatever. Openly asked us, if you expel the enemy, would you have a problem? Well, this is one of the things with insurgencies, is actually just expelling the enemy can be impossible because you can just radicalize and create the same enemy. You could just end up with the same thing again. Willie's War Book Club. We could get a War Book Club going. Should we do together, if I can bring up that document, let's see if I can bring this up and we'll go through and actually see if we think this counterinsurgency I'll bring up and see if we can actually see if we think it's going to be successful or not. We'll go through the questions together and we'll mark them down and we'll see if it has if it's weighted in the good or bad tactics. Does that make sense? All right, where are we? Reich Racing, thanks, mate. Thanks for becoming a member of the Willy Club. Remember, if you want to be a member of the Willy Club, or if you want to support my trip to the US to bring you a direct live stream of the elections, the problem is it's going to cost me a couple of $1,000 in flights and stuff. So let me know. Sweet. I am going to go and do a piss. I'll be back. I'll be back in a minute. Oh, let me do that. We'll read this in a sec. Right, should be hearing me now. Right. How do I, on this, if I want to crop the side of my head, how do I, like this video down the corner here, see how I can make it bigger or smaller, but how do I just crop it sideways? There's like a button I can press. Hey Google, how do you crop on OBS streams? Shit. Nah. Oh, it used to be really easy. Just makes sense. Alt, grab the sides. There we go. That's what we needed. Sweet. I'm not. I did think I shouldn't listen to you guys on here. You'll get me turning things off. Right. Here we go. So, victory has 1,000 fathers. What we need to be looking at, the interesting part of this, where we can add this up, is this is where at least where they take the data from. We look at the good and bad. Maybe I've crossed the page. Oh, too far in. Oh shit. What page do I want? It's not contents. Factors, summary, data collection. Blah, blah, blah. Outcomes. The ones, the good and bad, abbreviations. Bloody page was I on before? I reckon it was this page. The fuck? This is the outcome. Surely they haven't deleted the page. Wait. Summary table S1. Pay. Maybe I'm way too far down. What the fuck? Sorry, we're getting somewhere. I swear to God, the literal page that we're after is missing. Right, just wait one sec. I'm still here. I'm just going to, because I've got this saved as another document. That is wild. I'll just, here we go. Printed. Counterinsurgency operations. So I've got like a whole reading list of saved documents that are like relevant. Key findings, here we go. Table S1. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Here we go. Right, I need the chat. So, again, what you're looking at here is the good and bad practices of counterinsurgency. And, of course, you can then flip this to then get an idea of what are good practices of insurgency. So we're going to go through this. We're going to talk about which ones you think that Israel have or do not have. Therefore, we'll get a better idea of if a counterinsurgency operation will have success or not. So let's go through the good. Counterinsurgency force adhere to several strategic communication principles. Let's go that they... What do you think? I think probably, as far as strategic communications, probably... Did the coin force, so blue is yes in this. Coin force significantly reduced tangible insurgent support? No. The government established and maintained legitimacy? No. The government was at least a partial democracy? Yes. The coin force intelligence was adequate to support effective engagement or disruption to insurgents? Yes, it did cause, I guess, adequate disruption to the point. Let's go, yeah. Coin force was of sufficient strength to force the insurgents to fight as guerrillas. Yes. The state was competent. We'll go yes, but you could point at problems that have occurred also. The counterinsurgency force avoided excessive collateral damage. Not going to continue reading. No. The coin force sought to engage and establish positive relations with the population. Whether it did or didn't is regardless of it didn't come to that. Short-term investments, improvements in infrastructure or development, no. The majority of the population in the area of the conflict supported or favoured the coin force, no. The coin force established and then expanded secure areas, no. Had uncontested air dominance, yes. The coin force provided and ensured provision of basic services, not on the large degree, no. The perception of security was created or maintained among the population areas, no. So I think we have 5 good coin practices here. Do you agree? Does anyone disagree with that? Right. Bad coin practices. Collective punishment or escalating repression. Whether it was on purpose or not, that did occur because, of course, people lost their house, it's been bombed, and it could be seen as a punishment for an action that has then occurred. The coin force was an external occupier. Now, whether the goal is to occupy or not, which I believe it's not, but are they occupying that area to then run these operations? Then yes. Militias worked at cross purposes with the coin forces or government. So there was some level of work within the government as well that the militia is also then... Oh, sorry, I've skipped one. The coin force or government actions contributed to substantial new grievances claimed by the insurgents. Absolutely. Militias worked at cross purposes to coin force or government. So the militia was working as far as cross purpose. Is that bad? Yes, it's a bad coin practice. The counterinsurgency force resettled or removed civilian population for population control. Absolutely. The coin force collateral damage was perceived by the population areas worse than the insurgents. Yep. In the areas of conflict, counterinsurgency forces was perceived as worse than the insurgents. Yes. At least the perceived from population. I agree with this. Let me know if you disagree with any of these. Sorry. The coin force, counterinsurgency force, failed to adapt to changes in adversary strategy, operations, or tactics. I think that they have adapted to this. The counterinsurgency force engaged in more coercion or intimidation than the insurgents. I don't believe so, but again, it could be 50-50 on this one. It depends, I guess, how you look at it. Regardless, skip. The insurgent force was individually superior to the coin force by being either more professional or better motivated. Now, better motivated, potentially because it's ideologically more, but let's skip that one as well. Because it's definitely not superior in at least training. The coin force or its allies relied on looting for sustainment? No. The coin force and government had different goals or levels of commitment. Yes, there are definitely different goals or levels. So let's just have a look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So what you can see in this is you need a positive balance for it to be a successful counter. Now, what I will say is we have probably been fairly conservative. There are some in this which you could make good arguments to have as a yes as well, too. So there is, at least by this table, does tend to show that this counterinsurgency is not going to be successful, at least long term. And when we look at it, it needs to be weighed out. And we have 5 good, oh, that's an S, and 8 bad practices. Anyway, that is what we look at when we look at counterinsurgency. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that before. Some of you, it might be teaching you to suck eggs, but yeah, that is one of those things that is worth then actually looking at. Oh, out of the wards. Pop in, see us. Keep yourself safe, mate. Hope that you are doing well. Well, it is to a degree coin. It does depend. I do understand because there is a difference. It's not traditional coin as far as like Muj, but it's definitely part of this also. Came for your previous video, just cope. Okay, Shawnee. There's no hearts and minds. Well, there's definitely no hearts and minds being involved. Willie, what state? I'll be at Washington. I'll be in Washington at their live streaming. Oh, you can see the fatigue on my face. Exchange is happening as we speak. Let me have a look and see if anything has changed on this front. First tweet that popped up is Barack Obama. Righto. Jake says, why DC? Why not a swing state? Because I think that DC might be the most, because at the end of the day, I want to be where it could be the most, I've done something, where there could be like the most amount of action per se. Does that make sense? And I think being there, there's probably going to be more capital things like this, but I'm not 100% sure. Do you plan to bring a rifle? No, I'm Australian. Why do you think Iran has been so restrained? I really don't know. We know there's a newish leader there, but it has been weird. We also don't know how much Iran can actually further escalate to. We think maybe a lot, but again, it is difficult to know. With any authoritarian states like that, it is very, very, very difficult to actually get an idea of power and internal problems overall also. Rent a car on the West Coast. Yeah, it could be it. Why did Iran not give HKs aircraft weapons, including man pads? That is something which I'm very surprised we haven't seen absolutely more of. There's definitely a threat of it. There's definitely some present. But I guess we'll see. World War III by 2030. It's a possibility. It probably won't happen, though. Right. US Minister of Defense. Mark O. From one vet to another. Thank you, brother. Mark, I hope that you're doing really well. Let me send you some love. Your third super on a live stream. Thank you, brother. I really, really do appreciate that. It helps me. It helped me get to the States. Let's see what is said more by Aussie regarding this. US Minister of Defense, Lloyd Austin's. Oh, shit. Rick Racing. Thanks. Well, people will appreciate this, I am sure. Thank you. Spoke earlier with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, discussed security development as well as updates regarding the Israeli ground operation into southern Lebanon, with them agreeing for the needs of an operation to dismantle any attack infrastructure near the Israeli-Lebanese border to ensure that Hezbollah is never able to launch an October 7th style massacre against northern Israel. Secretary Austin also reiterated the serious consequences that Iran would face if it decides to launch a direct attack against Israel. Remember, it's vastly different. The relationship between the US and Israel is vastly different than the US and, say, Ukraine as well. So you could see, well, as we've seen with those missiles coming in, that American warships, British warships will engage those also. So there could be further escalation. I think this is what a lot of people are worried about is, well, could we then see US like directly targeting areas also? US officials, tonight's rocket attack in Iraq by Iranian-backed militias was attempting to target the State Department's diplomatic support centre near Camp Victory at Baghdad International Airport. Several rockets were intercepted by the base's counter-rocket artillery and CRAM system, while others fell within the airport perimeter of the camp, with the attack resulting in no American casualties. I thought Kamala said that no American troops were deployed in combat zones. Concerned Aussie said, would it make sense for Australia to have a volunteer civilian defence force to boost numbers and learn skills before it's too late? But that's Army Reserves, I guess, mate. Concerned Aussie, that is the reserves. Is, a couple of days, a fortnight in training, but mostly still a civilian. Is it true that Australia is giving away their Abrams to Ukraine? No, there's been a request for it. I haven't seen anything like really formal. I've seen some like ex-guys request it, but they're the older variants. I don't think it makes sense to give Ukraine Australian Abrams just because it's so far away. You put one Abrams on one plane or Abrams on a ship, it just takes so long to get there. You're better off if you want to give you want to give Ukraine X amount of Abrams. If Australia want to do that, they're better off bloody selling these to whoever wants to buy them within our local sphere, if someone will buy them, giving that money to the bloody US or to Germany and buying older tanks to give to Ukraine, because it's just so far away. It logistically doesn't make sense for the risk versus cost of that. Australia would be better off going, hey, we'll sell these 50 tanks to X. We're going to use that money. We're buying old Leopard 1A5s or something. It's just so far. And the Abrams promises are game-changing, but no. tell you who is the worst podcast, and I don't want to throw any hate here. I really like listening to Richard Dawkins speak. And I just saw a post that he was on Jordan Peterson's podcast. I can't handle Jordan as an interviewer. It's just so it's like he just wants to talk. I'm like, no, you are an interviewee, not an interviewer, if that makes sense. Like the one he had with Elon, which I actually would have liked to listen to. I just was like, I can't do this. Nikki says, can you speak on the pressures of influence to hardcore support one side's conflict and how you've dealt with it? Yeah, Nick. Well, look, if I hardcore supported one element of, say, Ukraine or Russia, I do know that I would probably double to triple my income and my viewership, if not more. But I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what I believe what I see that is true, what is actually happening. And that's how I see it. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't live with myself if I knew that I was just pumping out just BS. Like I couldn't live with myself if I knew what I was pushing out was not something that I actually believed in. And you can say what you want about if you believe I'm right or wrong. That's fine. But at least that's how I then see it. But there's a lot of pressure to sort of lean into one side also. I hated watching you early. You're trying to grow on me. Oh yeah, I'll take that. At least you're here. It's become dull. Time to smoke later. See ya, Len. Right, let me see if anything else is then occurring. But I am going to, Jesus, sorry, dog get hit. I am going to log off soon and then make a video update today about the fall of Vuhledar in Ukraine as well. Dingleberry, are you banned from Ukraine? No. Would be good to see you go back there and reporting and interviews some people on the ground. Yeah, look, it's not like I've had some threats from some people and some warnings of some other people looking out for me. So I think my time in returning might be limited, but I don't know. Potentially at some point. I think after the war there ends, there will be a lot of opportunities to do interviews that'll be very, very interesting interviews as well. Once the things calm off a little bit and then be like, right, I want to speak to X person, and it won't just be seen as just, if that makes sense. Oh. Right. Legends. Look, unless there's anything you want me to speak on or show you, I might actually get out of here because I've got to spend a couple more hours putting this video together. But again, if you want to support me and my streaming, and my trip to the US to watch the elections and to bring you a live stream. I'll be there streaming the elections itself. If you'd want me to actually do that, consider the super chat or the PayPal link that is in the pinned comment, or like Dr. Keita, you can become a member as well. So I appreciate everyone who has done that already. If you want to do that, if you want me to do the live stream on the ground, I'd appreciate that as well. Like Dingleberry has done. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, Dings. So thank you guys very much. Thanks for being here. And I'm not sure when I'll live stream next. If things do kick off or kick up more, I will live stream. It's good for me to jump on here and do this and talk to you guys and I guess engage with you guys as well. But otherwise, it is going to be more. The next one at least will be in about a month, 5th and then bring that from the US and see who wins the election, and then see if or what fallout may occur following this. Sorry, following that then election. Right. Thanks, dudes. Again, if you want to support me, links below, links in the description of everything. I appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you. Well, I'll make a video tonight and it'll be up. So, legends, look after. Oh, how do I close this again? Shit. That one. Right. No, wrong one again. Righto, legends. I'll speak to you very, very soon. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for